Hey everyone, welcome back to the All Music Matters in That podcast. I'm your host, Brian. Joining me today is a special guest hailing from the UK, Neil Hubbard, aka Nelioz, or I guess however you want to pronounce it too, because we're on the line, we're kind of discussing it back and forth. So I guess, how do you pronounce it? What's really the correct way to pronounce your band name?
Oh, well, I pronounce it Nelioz, but you can do it any way you want, really.
I guess
a lot of people pronounce it Nelioz, but I'm fine. But that's how it's actually spelled. So it's.
I want to say it's a difference in how the English try to pronounce it too. Us Americans are probably not going to be like, oh, that's Nelioz, that sort of thing too. So I don't know. I think it's the I too. So I think, like you said, we just got to drop the I. So how you doing, brother? How you doing?
Oh, not too bad at all. Yeah, it's a Saturday, and I don't think you have it in the US, do you? We have it. We're at the point in time where our summertime's ended, so we put our clocks back an hour tonight before we go to bed.
Actually, that's next weekend. So.
Oh, right.
I think it's always after Halloween. I don't know, but I know it always happens in November when we move it back too. So we at least get that extra hour of sleep back, which I definitely need because I've not been sleeping well the last couple of days. So that's all good though. It's just me kind of being stupid to be honest. But I guess how's the weather been recently? Because it kind of got all gray outside for some reason. It was pretty nice and warm.
Yeah, we've had some floods. We've had floods and storms. I've not been too badly affected where I am because I'm in the middle of England, say. But up in Scotland, yeah, they've had some serious flooding going on there, and we give our storms names. So we've got Storm, just had Storm Babette, and it delivered a lot of water.
I'll say I hope you don't have one named Hillary. That's for sure. So
yeah,
that's good. Are you feeling okay? I guess when we were talking back and forth, I guess you were kind of going for some checkups.
Oh yeah,
that's good to hear. All right. Yeah. So Neil, welcome to my podcast right here. The way this is going to work is I'm just going to get to know you more both as the musician, but also as the individual too. So before we jump into the questions I had sent over to you, I guess how did you find out about Christina and Greg's Facebook group band together?
They actually got with me. They liked one of my songs and they commented on it, and then I saw that they were in the band together thing. So I asked to join that group, and I was a bit wary about doing it at first because it seems to be a lot of heavy metal bands, and my genre is not heavy metal. I'll dip my toe in it a little bit now and again, but generally I'm more like mainstream. So. Well, sort of mainstream, in my own head, mainstream anyway. Anyway, I joined the Band Together group and then put some music out there, and I was really surprised about the feedback I was getting. I was also really surprised how much I actually liked their music because I thought it's not a genre I'm normally into, and yeah, I'm right into it now. There's loads of people on there. There's Anger Overdose and Asphalt Jungle and Death Pigeon and. They put out some amazing tunes. So Grimrock, he's another one of my favourite ones as well.
That's pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Christina's secretly a metalhead at heart, to be honest. So I think everyone is really.
She says she isn't, doesn't she? And she said several times she isn't a metalhead, but I think she's been drawn into it now, and I think she's like me. She's realised that what a cool genre of music that actually is.
I'd say your friends are definitely guilty of kind of enhancing the whole metal scene, to be honest, too.
Oh, yeah.
So that's all good. All right. So I guess let's start with the first question right here. I guess tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Neil, and I guess how did he become a musician?
Well, I've been interested in music for a long time, since I was a teenager. I used to watch Top of the Pops a lot anyway. I never really had a hankering to go on Top of the Pops. I used to watch it for the enjoyment of it. I started watching it about mid-70s during the glam rock period. But what got me wanted to be a musician, I used to watch a sci-fi program called The Tomorrow People, which is about it's sort of paranormal. I think they were teenagers. I'm not sure they were old enough. And one of them was called Mike Holloway, and he played drums. And he was on another show called Fanfare, and I was watching him. And then I must have been about 12 maybe, and I wanted to be a drummer when I saw that. So that's what got me into the music side of things. And we Well, we weren't poor, but my dad said that he wasn't going to buy me a drum kit because he looked in the catalogue and he said, "No, I can't afford that." So I ended up getting a guitar instead, because fairly soon after that I got into another English band called The Jam, and I really liked the songs they were doing. So I thought I'll get a guitar instead, and I'll do that. And my friend had a drum kit, so I just used to go play on his, and then we used to jam together. And neither of us knew really how to play the instruments at the time. So Lord only knows what it sounded like to the neighbours, but it's but that's kind of how I got into it. But my mum used to go, actually played the organ, and she used to go around the pub. So I used to thumb through her books that she did, and if I found like songs that she, some of the 60 songs that she used to play, that she went much further forward than that. And I was looking at the chords, and then I thought I better learn how to actually tune my guitar properly then. So I got a book, a little tutorial book, and then I started reading her books. It was like something like 101 hits for buskers, and I was getting chords for the songs out of there. And if I didn't know the songs, I used to play the chords and then just make up my own thing. And that got me into thinking, I might have a go at writing things myself then. And so that's how my love of music started, as far back, say, as about 1976, 77. And then the actual writing, wanting to write my own things, didn't come about till about early 80s probably. Just by reading the busker books, like I say, and learning a few chords, and the songs I didn't know, trying to play them anyway, and seeing what they sounded like.
So, man, you grew up during the great times too, especially because around the 80s, that's when the new wave of British heavy metal started coming out.
Yeah.
And I guess, did you get involved with, or I guess, did you listen to any of that music and try to like play along to it as part of like, the teaching?
Yeah, I did. There's a couple of bands that I used to like in the early 80s. One of them is Saxon, and they used to have some quite riffs that you could like quite easily emulate on the guitar. I'm not sure I used the full chords like they did, but I could get something similar to what they were playing. But just the chords, though, I could never do the solos that they did. I don't think I could do that now. But
keep it simple. Yeah.
But the people I liked were like Saxon. I liked Iron Maiden, and they were quite big, and people like Judas Priest, and quite a lot. It's amazing how your brain freezes, isn't it? I can't think of half of them, but I was into quite a lot of them. It wasn't my main genre, although I did have a compilation that's called Axe Attack, and that used to get played quite a lot. Iron Maiden as well, because of Paranoid, because that was a good riff to play. That used to impress people, and they could say, I can play the riff for Paranoid.
That's Black Sabbath, actually.
Black Sabbath, sorry, who did I say?
You said Iron Maiden.
Oh no, sorry, Black Sabbath. I was say Iron Maiden. No, because we got downstairs in my living room, we've actually got a big life-size cardboard cutout of Tony Iommi.
Do you?
But that's actually my stepson. So he's a really cool guitarist. But I was going to pluck up the courage to ask him, because he's only been my stepson for about 5 years or so, and I was going to pluck up the courage to ask him if he wanted to play in any of my stuff. But he moved to Guernsey, not to not play on my stuff. He just met someone over there, so he moved over to our Channel Islands. So it's his cutout. And how he got that was he was in a guitar shop, and he was playing something in a guitar shop, and one of the staff was like so impressed with what he was playing, they gave him it as a gift and said, "Here you are, you can take this home with you." But we've adopted it now. It's in the living room.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's pretty awesome. I do have to ask, which part did you say you were in England? You say you were kind of in the middle there.
Yeah, we're at Rugby, which is like the nearest big place to it would be Birmingham.
I was trying to figure out if there was like any famous artists who actually came in around. Because I was trying to remember like where like Black Sabbath actually first like.
They're Birmingham Black Sabbath.
Is that what it was? Okay.
Yeah. So not very far away from where they originated. I mean, there's a quite a good music scene in Birmingham. Excuse me. and Coventry, which is next door to Birmingham. And Coventry was where the whole two-tone scene came out. So you had all the ska reggae things going on there, and that all came out of Coventry. And and I think I was trying to think the other bands I was into. Birmingham. No, I thought Saxon were from Yorkshire. They're a completely different part of the country. And Iron Maiden from London, I think.
I think Iron Maiden was London. I'll have to check again. I'm not too sure, but we digress. We'll digress. But let's go ahead and jump to the band. I'm just going to stick with what I'm calling it. I'm going to call it Nelioz. So I guess go ahead and tell us how you formed the band. So.
Well, I'm just a one-man band. And the Nelioz thing came around through lockdown, really, because I just moved to Rugby, because I was in Manchester before that, we got stuck in lockdown, and so I ended up buying some more like musical equipment to record on, because when I moved, I left a lot of things behind in transit. So I left my recording studio, but bits of it started failing anyway, so it was quite an old one. So the Nelioz bit came around in the lockdown. Prior to that, I did record stuff on my own, but because it was very early 80s, I used to do it by having two tape recorders and taping something on one tape recorder, then swapping the tapes over and using that as a backing while I put something else on. The only problem with that is you can only do it 2 or 3 times before you can't hear anything that's going on. And it was quite a while before I got before I invested in a proper Porter studio, like a cassette Porter studio. Things started sounding better after that. And then I would say in the mid to late 80s, I started getting involved with getting myself into bands. So the first band I was in, we used to do like punk rock covers of old classics, and I think that lasted about 4 or 5 gigs, and then I found a community music. There's like a theatre group up the road, and they had a music group as well. So I got myself involved in that, and then I joined a band that would be On the Pale, who I was with for a long time. We actually came really close to signing to Rough Trade Records as well. I think we missed the boat because we were we were humming in. There's a lot of in-band fighting going on when something was on the table, and we could. And there was a lot of arguments about royalties going on. And at the time, I was saying, but I'm unemployed. I don't really care about the royalty side of it. We'll worry about that later. That should we get just they're pushing for a record deal first? But I think we sat on that for too long, and then Rough Trade started having financial difficulties and went bust. So we could have been a lot bigger than we were, and we came sort of close again about 1990, about 2000. We came quite close. We had a few people interested in us, but then it didn't amount to anything. So, and then I joined another band, and then that actually fizzled out because I got quite seriously ill. So I was off the scene altogether for about 3 years, and then when I came back, and I thought, oh, everyone's gone. Nobody's in a band now. So that's the point where Nelioz started on his own. I started on my own, but technically I didn't really start putting things out to the public until we were in lockdown, and I had a bit of time on my hands, and I had a bit of money as well. So I overhauled just about all my equipment, bought some new guitars, new basses. I did buy a new studio. It was a standalone, like 32 track, and then I think one of my old friends said, "What? He's better off downloading one onto your computer." And I asked him which one he used, and he said Reaper. And I saw how much Reaper was. I thought, like 50 quid. So I downloaded Reaper. I've not looked back since I've started using Reaper. It's one of the best things I've used. And I think if you listen to my Spotify, what I've got on Spotify, I think you can tell when I've made the switch from one to the other, because I think the production sounds a lot better now.
I see. I think Reaper is really starting be on the up and up, to be honest, because everybody I always say is like Pro Tools is like industry standard. I use Logic, and that one's pretty good for me, but that's because I roll with Mac.
Yeah.
Are you Windows or a Mac user?
I'm a Windows.
So that makes sense. But let's say then Ableton seems to be more for like the hip hop artists, to be honest. If anything.
Well, I've got Ableton as well because I got it free. I bought because to be able to use Reaper, I had to buy an interface and so that I could plug things in. And Ableton came free with that, or Ableton Lite anyway, to like an introductory thing into it. I had a little go on Ableton Lite, but Reaper was the most user-friendly one for me. Well, Reaper and about a ton of tutorial videos on YouTube.
Yeah, I imagine you had to hop on YouTube for that thing. That was the YouTube University, if that's what we want to name it now. So yeah.
Well, it's quite strange because they use different terms for things. But something like that, because if I call mastering and on Reaper they refer to it as rendering. So there's a couple of different like linguistic differences between what I'm used to and Reaper, but I'm getting my head around it more now.
Yeah, I kind of do the same thing with Logic in terms of I was trying to do like little beats at first. It would just be like MIDI notes and stuff like that too. I'm assuming Reaper does something similar. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is the difference with Reaper is you have to find your own plugins because their in-house plugins aren't very good, and I think Ableton has some quite good in-house stuff that you don't have to look for. And then when I started messing around with I've not actually used MIDI in the recording yet because I've not been confident enough to use it. And I was trying to some of the keyboards that I had were MIDI compatible, but when it says MIDI compatible, it's not like the real thing. So I ended up having to get a proper MIDI keyboard, and that works a lot better for me.
Yeah, I see.
But it's still a long process, though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not like something you can just do in one day, to be honest. I think you got to really mess around with it, which takes hours, maybe even days, depending on like how much knowledge you have of how you do it. So I can relate.
Yeah, no, I'm still learning with that. I'll use it. I'll use it eventually.
Yeah.
As I get into it more.
I guess, how would you describe your genre of music, too? Because I listened to a couple of your songs on Spotify there, I guess. It sounded a bit poppy, I guess. How would you describe your genre?
Yeah, I'd say poppy. I branch off into one or two things. Like the latest one that I put out was almost like it had a bit of a reggae feel to it. And I wanted that to be all electronic because I've got a little. Well, a lot of it's done. Some of it's done on a Korg because I acquired a Korg synthesizer, which I don't know how to use properly yet. I'm still doing YouTube tutorials on that, but even without the manual, you can get some amazing sounds from it. And it's got a vocoder on it as well. And it's always one of my dreams to have a vocoder. After hearing that Mr. Blue Sky and things like that. I think generally it's pop and probably 80s pop and that as well. And I like to go out because I like to do like a bit of a guitar solo sometimes if I feel confident enough to do it. But I'd say pop as a general umbrella. And then sometimes I go a bit rocky, and sometimes I go a bit jazzy, and it depends. It depends what I'm feeling like when I'm writing the song as well.
I guess, do you write the lyrics first and then try to throw in the music, or do you vice versa?
I used to write the lyrics first and put the music around it, and now I've been writing the music first. One, because the lyrics don't come as easily as they used to. Because when I was younger and quite well, what I thought was political, but used to get like fired up about things quite easily. And then in my more like mature years, I'm much more relaxed about things, so I can't write things. I don't generally write about things that fire me up now. So what I'll do is I'll write the tune first, and then that'll suggest something to me about what the lyrical content should be.
I was say, is that like a God Save the King sort of Sex Pistols sort of lyrical content?
Yeah, I don't do that sort of thing now.
I mean, we can't say God Save the Queen anymore, so I mean.
Oh yeah.
It's all good.
I might rework it. I don't
guess
know.
what do your lyrics mostly cover?
I quite like it. I quite like King Charles though. So
Yeah.
I quite like the fact we've got a royal family because it's I don't know. It's just something a bit different. It's not. I think there's more. Actually, I don't know. That's an unfounded statement, really, isn't it? But I assume that there's more countries without a royal family than there are with one. But I don't know. But our royal family is quite quirky still. Yeah. So I like to. I don't like all of it. But I like the fact they give us days off and days off.
Well, who doesn't like days off? I mean, come on, man. No. I mean, that's it to me too. That's okay. I was just kind of messing with you. But I'm sorry I interrupted there. But I was just gonna say what normally is in your lyrics, I should say, like what inspires your lyrical content.
Well, usually observing other people, because I don't normally. Yeah, I thought I went with Christina because she was amazed that my lyrics don't come from my own personal experiences, and I think it's because that I usually write them about other people, not necessarily their personal experiences, but what I perceive their personal experiences to be, and what things are like for them. So I put myself in their shoes. I think it's easier for me to do that because then I can contain things within 3 minutes. I think if I wrote a song where I was writing about my own personal experience, I'd be writing like 10, 15-minute songs all the time. Because and also I don't know. I don't feel comfortable writing about my own personal experiences. I like to kind of keep them personal. And even the ones, because I could have had a wealth of lyrical material about when I was ill for a while, but yeah, I just don't feel moved to any creative writing about it, and I don't know whether it's a mixture of whether nobody listened to it, or like I don't relish putting myself, but if I'm writing something about a bad experience, I don't really relish myself putting myself back there again. And dredging it all up. I'd rather, like, if I have bad personal experiences, I'd rather they stay buried than me write a song about them. So I generally look at what other people are doing, and then sort of like write a little story, if you like, about what I perceive their little snippets of their lives to be like, but in a clever way, so they'll never know it's them. Well, 9 times out of 10, they'll never know it's them.
Let's say like look real deep. They'd be like, "Hey, wait, did you write this song about me?" That sort of thing.
Yeah, I have had that, and I've denied it with people, even if I have written it about them. Just in case you get into this whole argument. I don't do that. I don't think that. And and I think, well, okay, well, it's only half. Half is what I think, and half is what I see. Sort of. So, and just marry the two together.
It's eventually just be like, okay, yeah, it's totally about you. That's sort of thing. I mean, if they keep pushing to it. So. I would say I've been used to listening to bands. I think even some in the band together groups who had talked about like how some of the lyrics were based on like real life experiences they'd gone through. Yeah. Whether it was addiction or maybe some sort of personal crisis, depression or something like that. But it definitely seemed like help them like bring it out, so to speak. So it was almost like a therapeutic sort of session, I guess. Is that what you love most about music? It gives you some sort of therapy in this?
Yeah, well, it gives me therapy in as much as it makes me really happy. It's what I get a lot of joy out of doing, and it's interesting from a lyrical point of view. It's interesting putting the lyrics together. And like I said, I generally don't use it as any sort of like cathartic experience for myself. And also I like when you learn how to do different things as well. Like when I first started doing it, and I realised I could layer different instruments together. So instead of playing a chord. Like you could layer this is more when I got my Porter studio. I could layer different guitar parts together to give the effect you were having playing the chord. Because the only problem with doing that is that when you come to do it live, you can't get it to sound the same. But I've not played live for a long time. I get far too nervous, especially on my own. Yeah. So, but I do get a lot out of it. But what I don't tend to use like things lyrically. I don't tend to use it to get things out of my system. I just I tend to use it if I am say fed up with something. You can tell usually in the music, because the music could be a bit more raw. And if I'm all nice and if I'm feeling all nice and happy and relaxed when I'm writing a song, then that'll come out, because it'll either come out jazzy or pure poppy.
I'm just picturing like a song, if it is something you're angry about, it's just like going heavy, British heavy metal, that sort of thing too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, all punk. Yeah, British punk is a good thing to play if you ever just want to vent some frustration out.
But that is true, yeah.
But like I said, that all comes out in the music. I don't tend to do with lyrics as much.
Okay, I see.
Right.
Okay, so let's get into your gear first, and then we'll talk about COVID afterwards, I guess. I've noticed, I can't tell if it's a bass by anybody. I'm assuming all three of those are I guess two of them are guitars and one's a bass.
Yeah, there's a PRS. There's the Sunbursty ones, a PRS. I bought that. I stumbled across a video on YouTube, and it was Jacko Jackzig from King Crimson, and Nick Kershaw, who is a British artist who I'm really into, and they were discussing the PRS guitars and playing them, but I just thought they looked really nice. I mean, they're saying about the playability of them and that they don't go out of tune, and that they're solid workhorse and reliable guitars. So I was going to buy one, and then I bought my stepson one as a moving in present, really, for when I moved in when I invaded his house, so to speak. And anyway, I had a little play of it, and I thought, oh god, these are as good as they were saying easily. So then I bought myself one, and there's a black one next to it, and that plugs into. I've got a Roland synth pedal, and that plugs into that. And then I've got something because I can play keyboards after a fashion, but I can play the guitar better. So it makes more sense for me to have a guitar that I can play keyboard on. So I could get that whole host of sounds. I can get synthy sounds and brass and So any of my stuff on Spotify, my recent stuff on Spotify, when you hear brass there, it's actually that guitar through the pedal that's doing it. And then I have a couple of bass guitars, but that's my favourite one. It's a short scale, and it's so much easier to play than a normal scale guitar. You don't have to stretch your fingers as far. Although I do play my other basses as well, because obviously I don't want to lose the ability to play one. But if I'm recording, then that's my go-to, because it just makes the job so much easier, and it sounds great as well.
I've actually had seen bass where it's like fretless all up and down the neck right there. So it's almost like, wait, that must be really tough, trying to like make sure you know like how to hit the notes and everything too. Did you ever mess around with fretless basses?
I did, because I used to wonder how it made a huge difference to the sound that having no frets there. Because you could slide up and down the bass guitar, but with the frets on, but it doesn't sound, or you can bend. Because what I used to do to affect a fretless guitar was I used to use a lot of chorus and do a lot of string bending, and you could get a sort of like fretless effect. But actually playing the fretless bass, when I could get it right, and when I had my fingers in the right places, because you didn't have anything you could follow. I was just amazed about how different they actually sound to a normal bass, just for the virtue of having no frets on them. And who's that I used to listen to? The two bassists I like who use a fretless. So one was Mick Kahn from Japan, who's no longer with us, to see, and Pino Palladino was another one. I used a fretless bass, and he used to session for lots of people. I think he even played with the Who one time, and he used to play for Paul Young and Gary Newman and a little bit. Just the sound they got, but whether it was him playing or the guy out of Japan playing it seemed to have a very similar sound. You know, the actual bass sound itself, even though two different styles of fretless bass playing it, it was just the sound of it that got me. It was just such a lovely, like, breezy, if you can call it that, but just such an easy, like, laid back, relaxed sound. And yeah, that held a lot of appeal to me. So I'm surprised I haven't got a fretless bass, but it's probably because I'd never do it justice.
I think when you're playing the regular basses, I think sometimes even if you're just like a smidgen off, or like where you have to place your finger to get the note right, it seems like you probably get some sort of reverb or something. That always annoyed me too, but my bass is kind of tucked in here at the moment. And I noticed that with mine, but mine's more really a Chinese ripoff, really, to be honest. So, but it still does a trick. In fact, I've done a couple of bass covers on that. I would have thought it would have been more for bass players in like metal bands, for instance, since they're more dynamic and technical. So I thought they allowed them to like move up and down the neck with like ease, a little bit easier too. So that's pretty cool. I actually had heard about those guys, and that'd be interesting to kind of dig into them a little bit more too. But I'll have to do it after this interview. So we'll see what happens. But I guess while we're on the topic, can you highlight any other gear that you use outside of, I guess you already mentioned Reaper and I guess your guitars. I guess can you highlight any other gear that you use?
Well, I just started looking around. I was a big fan of Roland Cube amps, and sometimes, I did used to use those actually, and used to mic them up to the studio. I don't tend to do that much now, because when I started using Reaper, I could find out I could just plug in, and it sounded just as good as doing it the other way, and it sounded just as raw. For my other gear, I used a Focusrite interface, a microphone. I've got one of the, I don't know if I could bring it in there so you can, the one that I'm using now. I use that, which is it's a really good dynamic microphone, and it's really good because it doesn't pop and squeak very much. It does if you get right close to it, but I never get too close to it. And I've got a whole host of effects. So I've got a couple of effects pedals that I use for the guitar. I've got two that I use for the bass. My favourite one is a recent one. I bought a Zoom one, and I can't remember. It's a BX7 something. And I like that one because it's got a nice graphic equalizer thing on it. I can really get the low end of the bass on it, and I managed to get a really nice bass because although it's my favourite instrument to play, it's the hardest one to get a good sound on when you're recording. When we used to be in, when I used to record in bands, and I wasn't and I played drums, but they used to, when they used to mix the bass, and I used to get home and I think, what have you done with the bass? It's not there. I could hear them playing it, and I can't hear it now when I'm listening back. And I think maybe it's because they couldn't get a good sound on it. But I've, I listen to records with like superb bass sounds, like Stevie Wonder stuff. He always gets superb bass sounds on his record, and it's not high in the mix, but you can hear it. You can hear everything that's going on, and but that's I think that got me into bass as well, because the fact it's just subtle. It's there, but you notice when it's not there. You don't really notice that it is there unless you listen for it. But when it's not there, there's something wrong with this. There's something wrong with this. There's something missing. Yeah. And then
to make it whole. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other equipment, if I feel inclined to play live drums, I've got a little Roland electronic kit, but I've also got a little Alesis drum machine. And what I do a lot of the time now is I'll program beats into there. Just because as I get older, I find it, because I'm on and off with the drums, as I get older, I find it more difficult to to play them as fast as I might like to, or to do the intricate things. And also, I left it alone with the drums for a long time because I swapped over to bass in my two bands, because we split up for a little bit, and then me and Rob came back as a two-piece, so I swapped over onto bass, and then I quite enjoyed it. So I thought I'll stay playing bass for a while, and I left the drums. And it must have been about 4 or 5 years I'd not sat behind the drum kit, and when I sat behind it again, I made the mistake of thinking I could play exactly the same as I did before, and I was like, uh-oh, I've forgotten half this stuff, and I couldn't coordinate things. And I used to be able to throw some complicated for me anyway, not complicated for somebody like Jeff Beccaro or somebody like that. And then, actually, incidentally, we're talking about him. I was watching something because it's something I still can't do, and he was explaining how he did the drum beat for Rosanna, and he's just doing like ghost notes on like different hands, and I can't even coordinate my two hands to do the Rosanna beat properly, let alone my foot, as well. So yeah, I'll tend to use a drum machine, especially for things that I can't play. So if I do a straight, say if I did something like that was punky, that slightly punk or new wave orientated, then I'd probably take the drums live on it. But for stuff that I really need it to be properly in time for, then I use the drum machine, and I might add bits. Using the Roland as well. To do that, you have to make sure they're very similar sounds. And I know that the Alesis and Roland don't. You can only get something that sounds almost the same, but not quite. So sometimes you can tell when I've overdubbed it. But when I've used a drum machine and then overdubbed my drum kit on top of it.
I see. I guess when did you start doing the drums? Was it before you got ill? I guess you were trying to do all this and that.
Yeah, I was doing the drums probably. I was quite late learning how to play the drums. I was about 86. When I used to practice on anything, get my hands on really, like pots and pans, biscuit tins, and things like that, and I could get my hands coordinated. And we were doing some sort of the charity show, and there was a drum kit there, and there was a band up playing, and I just got sat behind them and started jamming along with what they were doing. And then I realised, and I thought, I can use my feet as well, and it just clicked. I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't doing anything like too intricate at the time, and just doing the straight fours or a 6/8 or something like that, and a couple of fills, and then I bought a drum kit of my own. Then I started practicing and listening to other people and getting the more intricate things. Yeah, I didn't have any drum lessons, so it was a case of things clicking. So like bass drum offbeats, I couldn't do them until one day it just clicked, and I thought, I can do it now. So even things like You Can't Hurry Love, where your bass just going do 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 do, and I never be able to used to do that when I first started doing it, and then I just started to realise I could do it one day, and that's how I drum things. And then when you realise you can do some things and something clicks, and you start getting a bit more ambitious, and then you end up acquiring a whole new set of skills for it. But I'm no John Bonham, and I'm no Neil Peart, but I can hold my own, I think. Just
you need a certain degree of level of skill in order to be ranked in amongst the professor and Mr. Bonham too. So yeah, I can see why. I'd
have to practice like several hours a day to get as good as they were, and probably practice several hours a day probably till I was dead.
I guess, are you self-taught on all your instruments?
Yeah, mainly. I had a couple of guitar lessons when I was at school, and they taught me how to tune the guitar, and he taught me a few chords, and then he taught me a couple of songs, and then they wouldn't let me carry on with the guitar lessons at school because they clashed with, it's either maths or English. I think it was English that it clashed with, and they said it's a core subject, you can't miss out in English lessons. And I thought, well, I could speak English. But
no, I speak English. So I was like, okay,
So yeah, so a couple of lessons, and I taught myself through books. I bought myself a book of guitar chords, because I could play chords that I didn't know what they were, and I think that's what I bought the chord book for. Because that one of the bands that I was into was the Kinks, and one of the chord structures that the Kinks use, so they use it in a few songs, is where they go from a minor to an augmented to a minor 7, and the effect that gives is all that da da da, because you're just dropping one note all the time. But I knew how to play it, I just didn't know what it was, and I wanted to know the theory behind it. So I was looking to say what these chords were. So yeah, self-taught, and then a little bit from books. Yeah, and then bass. Well, yeah, the bass was self-taught. I mean, my guitar teacher taught me 12-bar blues when I was learning the guitar, but working out the scales on the bass is something I had to teach myself.
Yeah, I imagine it was a little tricky trying to do bass clef coming out of treble clef, to be honest, too. I was actually a strings guy in the beginning, actually. I actually did cello, so I'm already familiar with bass clef, so it was sort of easy, but the thing was I had to just knowing how to do an E string, so that was a little bit of a learning curve. But what were you going to say?
Yeah, and the other thing I can't do is read music. I went on a music theory course, and it was the person who was running it. I thought, well, if anyone can teach me how to read music or get my head around reading music, then they can do it. But it didn't happen quite like that. I think what made me believe that was that our homework, so to speak, was that we had to do. We had this channel called Channel 4 on the thing, and what it was just 4 notes. And so what we had to do was write the musical score down for these 4 notes. And so everyone else was doing it. A couple of people got it right. And a couple of people, when I did it, and the timing was wrong, the notes were wrong, and it sounded nothing like what we were supposed to. I think that was the last time I went. I think I found that too embarrassing, and I thought, I'm not going to get my head around this. I'll just have to manage with, picking things up by ear. And yeah, so that's the way of doing it. So any cover versions that of managed to work out how to play, it's just by listening to it and having a knowledge of what the chords actually are. But just listening to it, and a lot of the time you can get it. You don't even really need the books. You just need the first couple of chords that they've started with, and you can work it out quite successfly. I said most of the time you could do that. One person it's difficult to do that with is Bowie. I didn't realise how hard some of his stuff was. So I can play some of his stuff. I can play Changes and Space Oddity and things like that, but not things like Life on Mars and Ashes to Ashes. They've got far too many key changes in. I can play Ashes to Ashes on bass, though. I can't do it on the guitar.
Was that going to do Space Oddity?
I could do Space Oddity. The bass on Space Oddity is really wacky. If you that separate it from the rest of it. In fact, that's another bass player that I admire as well, Herbie Flowers. He was one of my favourites. He's sessioning for everybody. Herbie Flowers was the bloke responsible for the Walk on the Wild Side bass, which is another one. He said he got paid about £10 for doing that.
Yeah, thank you for your services, that sort of thing. Yeah. So I guess since we're talking about that, I guess who would you list as your biggest influences? I guess if you want to do guitar, bass, and if you got any drummers, go ahead. All
right. Well, the drummer that I first noticed how intricate like drum patterns can be was Neil Peart from Rush. I was listening to them. I had the Hemispheres album, and I was just to play it over and over again, and more especially the Villa Strangiata, because I fell in love with that. So I had that on repeat. But that was the first from a drumming point of view. Because the thing was, we're watching, and you watch Top of the Pops and anything that just goes out as a mainstream pop. I spent years thinking that's all drums did was do, 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 and that was it. Because that was all you saw. You didn't see them really go far off the beaten track if you have your mainstream stuff. And even now, you don't see them. And you hear stories of like session drummers So then they put a fill in, and they take, you can't do that. It's too complicated. So so for ages I thought it was just 4/4 timing or whatever they did, and then I started listening to some of the stuff, and then the other I was listening to the Who, and I was really impressed with like Keith Moon's drums. And also I spent a lot of time thinking that Keith Moon couldn't really play the drums, just as just about like being younger and watching things when he was on Ready Steady Go. And the reason I thought that is that Keith Moon just used to not care, and it was miming, so he just used to like not take it seriously. But yeah, when I heard some of the things that he did, and watch a couple of videos of the live performances, and I thought, there's more to this drum lap than meets the eye. But it's Neil Peart who got me first with the drums, especially the double bass drum as well, and the way he just coordinated the tom, especially the toms and the bass together. And I was blown away by that. So from a bass point of view, it's difficult, really. Suppose that from a bass point of view, my first influence was probably Bruce Foxton from the Jam, and then John Jack Burnell from the Stranglers, and they both used a plectrum to play the bass with. So I just used a plectrum for ages when we were starting. I didn't get into the finger bass till probably till about the mid '80s, and then by the mid '80s I'd started listening to Level 42, and then I was getting into that sort of bass. So it was using Larry Graham's technique of the slap pull, and he was doing it much faster and doing more complicated bass lines. And I had a bit of a I had a bit of an interest in slap bass, but I found out that it didn't really fit with any of the music I was doing. What it was good for was that when somebody said you play the bass, I said play a bit of bass, and if you played something like Mark King did, one of his like simple techniques where he do the machine gunning effect, and he did that, and then people were really that used to impress people for some reason. That used to impress people more than doing a little bass flurry out of the Villa Strangiata when he does that little jazz flourish in the middle of it that just came out of nowhere. And you could play that and people would be, just be a bit nonplussed and say, yeah, all right then. But, you played a little bit of slap bass, and it used to impress people. So I don't used to put it in my songs, but if anyone said, yeah, play a little bit of bass, then I'd play a bit of slap, because I thought it was easy brownie points for me.
I would say I don't really know too many Cosmic Rocks who did a whole lot of what we call the slap bass too, with the whole thing with the thumb too. It was more, I heard it more in metal, to be honest. I think the first time I heard it was in one of the heavy metal groups called Mudvayne, who the bass player Ryan Martini, he was fucking phenomenal on that. So
yeah.
But I guess we're going to cover the guitar players now.
I suppose with guitar players, it started off being it started off being the punk things again, and I suppose that gave me a liking for the chords. But with solos, I used to like people like Peter Frampton. I think he was one of the ones, and he had that strange like talking guitar thing that he used to play. And then I started listening to more solos then. So and off the Bat Out of Hell album, listening to the solos on that. I can't remember who did the solos on that now. I don't know whether it was actually Jim Steinman who was doing them himself. And then with the British side of things again. So that's one of my influential guitarists, but I think it's more to do with their chord structures, so that they can do a good solo as well. With Nick Kershaw, and I don't know how well he's known in the US. I think he only had one. He might have only had one hit in the US. But yeah, he was quite prog rock influenced. But I used to love his guitar sound, and I used to like his guitar solos that he used to do. And I like another one who got me as well was Eddie Van Halen, but just for that particular style of his finger doing. And Jeff Beck, And Jeff Beck was quite late on when I started noticing what he was doing on guitar. That was about the 90s when I noticed what, because I only knew him for like things like Hi Ho Silver Lining or whatever, and it was I was really amazed to see, really amazed. It was I caught a clip of him. Well, I think it was around a friend's house who had reams and reams of music videos, and he put Jeff Beck on, and I was watching what he was doing on the guitar, and I was thinking, I honestly didn't know he did all this. So yeah, I've got a few guitar people. It's really hard trying to name a favourite out of everybody who plays.
Yeah, that'd be pretty tough, to be honest. So.
Because even people like Hank Marvin from the Shadows, he was I know a lot of the stuff that he used to do sounded like not quite simple really, but not like intricate, saying in the same way Eddie Van Halen would do something. But then he had some like nice, interesting techniques. I mean, Hank Marvin was the person who first noticed the violining technique. And then there was another one that came into my head. Then I've forgotten who they are now. I used to like the people who did because I still can't get it quite on the guitar when they you like get a little feedback effect when they're playing in the pan. You're supposed to just do it by catching your nail on it in a certain way to get the little harmonic type feedback thing. I can do it if I can do it by accident if I'm lucky, but I'm not being able to perfect getting it just as it is.
That's why we missed up here, Frampton, because I do remember when we were driving on one of our trips, they were playing a live version of some of his songs too. And I guess he was doing, I think my dad said that album was a live, I forget what city it was at, but it ended up being such a big seller back in the 80s. So, and I just remember it being an absolute badass too. And I also remember they did a reference to him in Family Guy too, when they wanted to bring him along for like Peter's wedding anniversary. Do you know Family Guy by any chance?
I'm familiar with it. Yeah, I've seen a couple of episodes of it.
So I did bring Peter Frampton in just for a little bit there, just for that little segment with his acoustic guitar or whatever device he uses to make his voice go wong, 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 that sort of thing. So at least that's how they phrased it too. But I'm sorry, what were you going to say before?
Yeah, no, I think Peter Frampton used to, if I remember rightly, he used to have this little tube that used to come up, and he used to, it just used to make his mouth movements around there, and then I quite like to have one of those actually, but they're quite expensive and yeah, it's a case of when would I use it apart from just to mess around on. Mark Knopfler, Dire Straits, he's another one that I liked his guitar style, but his style when he used to do like solos, he was more like finger picked his solos. Whereas if I attempt something like that, I'll use a plectrum, or sometimes I use my thumb if I want a softer sound on it. And then,
do you do any sort of finger picking at all, or are you just mainly using a pick?
I'll mainly use the pick. I'll do a little bit of finger picking now and again. It's something that I've only started to do it like fairly recently, because I've always been just into strumming guitars, and then sometimes using weird chords.
I guess for the bass, did you start off doing fingers and then work your way into a pick?
No, I started using the pick first, and then I started using my fingers, and then I went back to a pick for a little bit, because when I was using my fingers, I was getting blisters on my fingers using my fingers, so I was alternating between the two. But now I'm all right now. I'm pretty well calloused on my fingers, and also I use my thumb as well quite a lot, just to do the strumming, because I noticed Paul McCartney used to do that a lot with his thumb. And I thought I'd try with what I found it useful with doing the thumb is that I could do the octave bass better. Like if you do a walking bass, I found it a lot easier to do with my thumb and my big finger to do a walking octave bass than using my fingers, the walking bit.
I was trying to think of the walking bass too, because I just I guess, how do you define the walking bit? I think it's the first time I actually heard them talk about that.
Oh right, well it's when they do the octave, so it's like ding 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 ding.
Okay, makes sense.
And if you do that like walking style, I can do it walking style, but I find it easy using my thumb and that finger, ding 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 ding, like that, and then.
I would say that's a cheating version too.
And it's yeah.
So.
Well, I think that I think the plectrum cheats to a certain extent because it's. But the thing that you get with the plectrum is that it's clicky and it works in some songs, so it doesn't work in others. Sometimes you just want the note there. You don't want the percussive bit before it. You just want the note there, and I think it's a much richer sound if you use your fingers as well. So if I do anything punky, or even if I do anything on the heavy side, then I'll use the plec, and then for most of the stuff I use my fingers.
Do like a Steve Harris sort of style right there.
Yeah. I've just had. I'm not familiar with Steve Harris.
Well, from Iron Maiden.
Oh right, okay, yeah.
So yeah, actually I did an Iron Maiden song to do the Halloween season. So everybody make sure you tune in for that video on Halloween. And I guess did the Brits celebrate Halloween differently? I'm just curious because I'm curious how the rest of the world celebrates Halloween.
All right. Well, we do all the dressing up, and we leave sweets out because the kids come around and do trick or treating. And sometimes I didn't do it last year. Sometimes we used to like go out and put a bit of makeup on. And we used to gig Halloween, so I used to put the eyeliner on and draw, paint my face up a little bit. But yeah, I think we celebrated the same way. We used to do the same games when we were kids as well. So we used to do the apple bobbing and things like that. And we'd probably still eat the same sort of food, like toffee apple and ginger cake and things like that.
We don't have like the Hershey's chocolate or anything like that, so. I guess who's a big chocolate maker in the UK?
I would say probably Cadbury's and maybe Mars as well. I think they're the two big chocolate. When I went to America, I noticed that Hershey's was the big brand over there. We do sell Hershey's over here, but it's just not. Over here, it's more in the like when you go to the supermarket, and then you've got your aisles for like different continents. So you got your Indian one, and like your Chinese and Italian, and then you got the one where they got the American one. Although there is quite a big thing for shops that sell American candy. We had one in Birmingham, so that sold all the things like ranchers and. Oh, I'm struggling to name them now. There were ranchers and Twinkies and things like that, and because we couldn't get any of it. I was aware of what these things were because when I was a kid, I used to read like Marvel comics. So I used to get Marvel comics, but the adverts in the Marvel comics were all for American things. We couldn't get them, so. I used to look at the things like Twinkies and I thought they look nice and going to the supermarket looking for them. No, we don't sell those here.
Not UK made, that sort of thing, yeah.
Yeah, but there's been a bigger market for things like that. So we did have a lot of American candy shops opening up. And yeah, there were some nice sweets. A bit too loaded with sugar for me now, though.
Yeah, I guess given your condition right now, I guess. But did COVID kind of play a factor in, I guess, your condition as you speak?
Did what, sorry?
COVID, I guess. Did COVID affect you in any way? I guess also in terms of family and band.
Oh, yeah, COVID affected. I mean, it affected me because like when I moved up to rugby, and then my son was still down in Manchester, and I didn't see them for just over a year. Because we had to lock down, we weren't allowed to go. Anyway, I was allowed to, because I was still being followed up for hospital treatment. Because about 2015, then I got bowel cancer, and then they operated on me, and then I got it again, and they operated on me again. So I have to go down for these. I have to go down up to Manchester for these checkups. And I remember going up to Manchester, and then I did call round for them. But obviously there was a 2 metre rule, so we have to like conversation 2 metres apart, which is really weird. So I think COVID had a negative impact on me that way. It had a positive impact on me because it gave me more time on my hands, because I wasn't going out, because I'm in a pub quiz team, and we used to go out like 2-3 times a week, and that stopped. So I was missing the social aspect of it. But also I was being a lot more creative because I had a lot more time on my hands, and also because we were working from home, I wasn't travelling into work, so I was saving the money that I would be using to travel with, and buying all sorts of new gear with it. So it was great. So like in about because it used to cost me about, let's say, £200 a month travelling to work and back. So after about 3 months, 3 months, then that got me the PRS guitar and things. So it was very good in that respect. It was quite fulfilling in that respect. But yeah, they're not being able to go out, and then the actual fear of getting COVID itself, because you heard horror stories of what it did to other people, and the reality of it with me when I finally did get it was. I don't think I suffered as bad as a lot of, just because I had 1 or 2 friends who were quite seriously ill with it, and they had to go to hospital. I didn't have to go to hospital with mine. I just felt like I had really bad flu for the first week, and then just no energy for about 2 weeks after that, 3 weeks after that, and then started to. So I noticed it when I wasn't feeling quite so rough, and I went down and thought, oh, I made myself a meal, and I got halfway through it, and I can't do this now, and I had to go back up to bed again. So yeah, I didn't like actually having it, and I didn't really like having the jabs, the vaccines, because I wasn't 100% sure whether I trusted them or not. But in the end, I thought, well, they must have researched this enough to know that if I do have a COVID vaccination, the chances are I'm not going to get anything wrong. And I never had a reaction from any other vaccination for anything I've had. So I was a little wary of the vaccinations to start with, but then I thought, yeah, but what's the alternative? I get, that's something that might be life-threatening, and then, you could wish all you wanted that you didn't protect yourself against it, but it wouldn't do you any good then. So, yeah, so it was a bit of a mixed bag with COVID. I missed the social side of things, but it was quite creative, and I was able to put a whole album together through COVID, through not going out, because I get because I was stuck in the house. Because otherwise I just get too easily distracted, and I'm off doing things. And
I see. That's good to see you're doing really well. And I guess, would you say you're pretty extroverted in a way? You're able to interact with a whole lot of people pretty easily.
Yeah, it depends what the situation is. I mean, I'm all right in the pub quiz team. If I go to like a formal occasion, say, so if I go to a wedding, or somebody's birthday party or a funeral, I can tend to be a bit drawn in. It depends how many people there are. If there's a lot of people, I'll tend to be a bit more drawn in, because I just get a bit I don't know, shy, if you like, if there's a lot of people. Especially if they ask me.
I would say I was kind of the same way too. Yeah.
Yeah, especially if they ask me to get up and play guitar and sing as well. I mean, I have done sometimes, but I've done it under duress. But the other thing is as well is in a big crowd if I'm in a smallish crowd of people, I'm all right because I can keep track of the conversation. But if I'm in a large crowd of people, I find it really difficult to keep track of the conversation. And then the other thing that happens with me as well is I'll listen to one conversation, and then someone else is having a conversation that I can hear bits of that sounds more interesting than the conversation you're supposed to be joined in. And then I think, if it just snuck away, would that be really rude? And went in that conversation where I've got more of an interest in, so I get that as well. And I think it's a slight thing. I think it's slightly Asperger's-y as well. I don't think I've got Asperger's syndrome, but I think that's sort of like a symptom of it, not being able to cope with too many people at once in a conversation, and you just sort of like get a bit confused by it, and it sends you in a bit of a brain scramble, and then you end up not participating.
I would say I've always struggled with interacting with people too, and that's why I like doing this podcast here, because this really helps out, especially in interacting with someone on the other side of the world in the UK. So that's a cool thing too. But I would say COVID, it was at least fine because I at least finally got to work from home, which was really something I've been trying to work towards at some point. Because it used to be like once a week, and then it was like every day because of COVID. Now it's like 2 days a week with like 3 times you have to go into the office. So it's a little bit of a bummer, but I took up a second job because I wanted to get back into that social aspect too.
Yeah.
So I guess let's hold these two questions together. But I guess first off, do you work multiple jobs? And I guess is that one of the challenges you face as an indie musician?
I do work, yeah, but I used to be full time, and then I because our pension scheme was quite good, I took partial retirement, so I just do 3 days a week now, which does make things a lot easier as an indie musician because I can put a bit more time into it. But now that I've got more equipment and I can make my music sound a whole lot better, then I also spend a lot more time on one song than I used to. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, though. It's because it's just a discovery, and also it's a lot easier if you play something back and something doesn't sound quite right, then it's a lot easier with Reaper to actually to redo it again. And also it's a lot easier if you do 2 guitar things, like 2 guitar verses. You could do it on a standalone. It was just a lot harder. With Reaper, it's a lot easier to if I just made a little fluff on the second chorus or something, you can always pull what you did in the first chorus and pull it across. I know that's cheating, but that's what it's. That's what they give you, that function there to do exactly that. So I thought, well, I might as well use it.
That's pretty cool. Were you gonna say something else? Sorry.
No, I was just saying that was a godsend when I worked out how to do that. That took a couple of YouTube tutorials as well, because I couldn't work out how to. I think with Reaper, if you just copied and pasted it, you got 2 guitar takes on the one track, and I couldn't work out how to take a little section out and then copy and paste it into there. But now that I can do that, yeah, it makes things easier, and also because the production tools are so much better, then I'll spend a bit more time working on them as well, to make sure that what I do come out with is a bit more polished than it normally would have been.
Yeah, YouTube's really been a blessing with, as we were saying earlier, it's like YouTube University. So,
oh yeah.
Or I always like it the way you Brits kind of pronounce it. It's like uni, that sort of thing too. So, as I described too, where we have like in the States here, we have like colleges, and then we got universities. So, kind of split up a little bit too. But I was trying to think. Oxford is considered a college, right?
Yeah, I think it's got both. It's got a college and a university, I'm pretty sure. And then Cambridge, which is the other famous one, I think that's just a university there. But yeah, I've definitely heard of Oxford College. I never heard of Cambridge College.
No, I do remember Cambridge University, yeah, that much. So, all right, that's all good. And good to see you doing well here, mate. Let's keep able to go to work. So.
Oh, thank you.
Always. And did you highlight any other advice you'd probably give to like maybe other musicians in our little community we got going on Facebook?
Yeah, bits of advice. I mean, one is, just that because there's hundreds of thousands of people who don't hit the big time. So just sort of like keep it in mind, that it is something that you enjoy doing first and foremost. And if you do get a lucky break, you'll get a lucky break. But if you don't lose sight of the fact that you enjoy what you're doing. So I think sometimes it's easy to get sucked, especially with especially with the Spotify and YouTube and things like that. I keep getting emails off Spotify saying, you had so many listeners this month. And so if we get one month and then the next month it was like half the amount as the previous month. And I found myself worrying about it and thinking, why has it gone down? Why aren't people listening to it that month and they were listening to it that month? And it's really easy to get bogged down and sucked into that whole thing. So I suppose the best piece of advice I could give to indie musicians is don't get sucked into that sort of thing. Other advice, get Reaper, definitely.
Oh, come on, Reaper. Man. Now you're killing me.
If you're using just a normal Porter Studio, that standalone Porter Studio, and you swap over to Reaper, and you'll find out how much easier it is to get your stuff down and to mix it. And what other advice as well? Oh yeah, this is like comparing your musical ability to someone else's, because I found myself guilty of doing that until I realised that there's bands out there who don't play instruments very well, who can come up with much better songs than people who've got like degrees in their like musical instruments. Because there's a band that I'm not sure how big they made it in the UK, in the US either, because they're from Liverpool in the UK. But Echo and the Bunnymen, they were called, and their songs are excellent. And they're not great musicians at all, far from it. But the songs they can put out with the knowledge that they have, they've done some pretty phenomenal songs. So I'd say don't get bogged down in like, you know, if you can't play the guitar like so if you can't play the guitar like Eddie Van Halen, it doesn't mean to say that you can't write a storming song. And yeah, I can't think of much other advice to do on that other than just keep a level head and don't get bogged down in the numbers, and just make sure you remember that you're doing it because you enjoy doing it.
Oh, that's pretty good. I mean, it's on the same lines like what other people would technically say along the lines of like, don't give up and don't get discouraged by like what you're saying numbers wise. Yeah. And
if you do get disillusioned, then you can sort of like give up for a bit and get your head together. So I've done it. I've dropped out a little bit sometimes to get my head together, and then I'm just doing a bit of product placement there because it's my merch.
Yeah. I guess, do you do that through Teespring, or how do you sell your merch?
It's a friend of mine does it. He's worlds apart in his two professions because he's a chef full time, and then his girlfriend runs a printing business, so he sidelines it, and I think he uses their equipment, but he does a little sideline of doing things. So what he does usually, he like does personalised T-shirts or cushion covers or mugs or like ornaments and things like that. But he said that he did my T-shirts for me, so I gave him a go, and he's come up with some really good T-shirts. I've not had groundbreaking sales, but I didn't realise how much they cost to make. And then I suppose that I sold more in the UK. When I say sold more, about half a dozen maybe. I think it's a shipping that costs some money. So if you want to buy one and try to get them across the pond, then it costs. I think it costs about £12 to ship it, as well as the 20 quid it is to buy the T-shirt in the first place. And it's a lot of money for a T-shirt, especially like someone you never heard of, really. So I could do it. I could get a firm on the continent to do it for me, and then it'd be people who get the cheap T-shirts cheaper because it'd be. But because I think that's what Deaf Pigeon does. He uses somewhere in Holland, I think. So the shipping costs aren't going to be as high, and they can go just about anywhere.
Yeah, it's like a distributor. Yeah, that's what Teespring is.
But for the moment, I'd carry on using my friend for the moment. But I'm not sure I'm going to get any, because there's a band on the Band Together thing who I bought a T-shirt from, and they were doing the T-shirts themselves. They were called First Aid Spray. and they were doing their own T-shirts. So I said, I'll buy a T-shirt off you. So anyway, he asked me, he priced it up, and then he came to post the T-shirt, and then he said the postage is more than I thought. And can I ask you for that for? I think it was an extra $14 or something. I said, yeah, okay, then I'll do that. And then he told me how much it was to make the T-shirts and how much it was to post them. Anyway, so there's a bit that you've not made any profit at all out of sending that T-shirt to me whatsoever. So I just sent him another $10. I said, you got to make something out of it, even if it's only that. But I think that's why I'm going to come and stuck selling my stuff like to the US, because it costs at least £12 to get something. Like I sent Christina one as a freebie, and that cost me £12. So like I say, you're looking at about £35, which is probably about $45, I would say, which for a T-shirt for an indie musician is a bit expensive. So I might have to rethink. I might just have to
rethink your marketing strategy.
Yeah, I might have to use my friend for stuff that's in the UK. For stuff that's in the US, I might have to go somewhere different, or just resign myself to the fact that no one in the US is going to spend $45 on
a T-shirt.
On one of my T-shirts. Yeah. They are good though. I mean, the reason that they're £20 is because they're all like 100% cotton and really good quality stuff. But even so, yeah, very expensive. But they're expensive to produce, because my profit margin's quite small. It's only about that, in terms of dollars, about $5 or $6 probably that I'd make off any T-shirt sales. The rest would go to the post office and for the price of the T-shirt and the price of the ink.
Yeah, it's a hefty penny. So, got to see what happens. But I would say good luck there, mate. It's kind of an uphill struggle, like with a lot of things that we're doing in terms of social media, and also we're trying to do some sort of merchandise as well too. So good luck to you, mate.
Yeah, I mean it's nice to have merchandise there if people do want it.
I mean just have it on the table too. So I mean it's like, hey, it's a nice little extra dollars if you're able to get anything out of it too. So
yeah, so maybe if I pluck up the courage to do a couple of gigs locally, then I can hike some of it around there. I mean, at the moment, if I want any, I just get in touch with them and I'll just do them to order, so that I've not got an outlay, and so that works quite well for me. If I wanted to sell them at gigs, I'd have to get them to do me a couple of these.
And then a T-shirt salesman, yeah.
Oh yeah. Hey. But yeah, we'll see on that front.
Good luck. So all right, so. Actually, we're down to the fun questions right here. Then we got one more after this too. So you ready for some fun questions?
Okay.
All right. So first off, what is your favorite food?
Oh, it's really hard to narrow it down to what my favorite food actually is. I think if I had to choose something, it would probably be pizza. So I think that's what I tend to go for most of the time. Although I do like Chinese a lot as well.
He's got a secret Italian and Chinese side within him.
Yeah. Because I like curries, but not I like Asian food, but yeah, not as much as I go for pizza, and especially a Philly steak pizza. That's the best one I've had up to now. So I'd say Philly steak pizza if I had to choose one.
Is that like they mixed it with all sorts of toppings? Because when I'm thinking Philly steak, I'm thinking like it's like a Philly cheese steak style pizza too.
Yeah.
Or I guess what's on it?
Pretty much that. Just pretty much steak and cheese.
Oh man. Yeah, they'll think about just about anything these days too. I know they did like the buffalo chicken style one. They just put buffalo sauce, nice little rings in and around it too. Me, I'm a carnivore. Yeah. I want to have a meat eaters and just devour that whole thing. So.
No, I did go veggie for a while, but I just had too many pangs. And after a few years, I thought, if I'm still getting pangs for meat now, I'm not going to be a vegetarian. So I went back to being a carnivore again, and I felt so much better for it.
I had a hard time trying to become an omnivore afterwards too. So.
Yeah, well, I did. I did cook a lot of meat after when I fell off the vegetarian wagon. But I like my vegetables as well, though.
Okay. You gotta get your veggies every now and again too.
Yeah, but yeah, meat's nicer.
Oh yeah, get the protein.
Oh yeah,
the protein. All right. Okay. And what's your favorite movie?
my favourite movie, and I know it's my favourite movie because it's the one that I've watched the most times out of any movie, is The Shawshank Redemption. And I've watched that lots and lots of times. That would be second, Shawshank Redemption, and then I'm not even sure it'd be a close second, but a second nonetheless would be Pulp Fiction, because I really like Pulp Fiction as well. But Shawshank Redemption's a lot better than Pulp Fiction, in my opinion. It's really nice and gritty, but believable as well.
Yeah, it's a Pulp Fiction. It's pretty out there too, but it's still a badass movie.
Yeah, it takes you on an emotional roller coaster, Shawshank Redemption, and Pulp Fiction's just an action and like gangster film, which, you know, and it delivers on lots of levels as well.
I'll say that, man. It's hilarious at times, yeah.
And it's that's my favorite one of the Tarantino films as well.
I actually do have a poster. It has Mia and John Travolta dancing during the dance scene there with like Jack Rabbit's limbs, yeah. And actually, I wanted to look it up to see if that was actually a legit restaurant, and it actually is. But it looks like I think they just do it in the Los Angeles area too. So, I'm not sure if it's like a chain. It's all across the states, but I don't know. There's not one in my neck of the woods, unfortunately. So,
no, I wouldn't mind going there just to because there was a big thing on there, wasn't there, about that she ordered a $5 milkshake.
It was something like that, yeah. And then, or have your burger bloody as hell, that sort of thing. Which in that case is pretty damn raw. So.
Yeah. No, I think I might go for a little better cooked than bloody as hell on a burger.
I mean, don't go storing cocaine in the bathroom afterwards. Yeah.
I still like it pink in the middle.
Sure, you like the medium sort of style meats.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice bit of
flavor. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice bit of flavour around the outside of it, and then nice and red in the middle.
You know, I would not like it for steaks because I think unfortunately it's still pretty chewy, and eventually the jaw starts getting a little sore from chewing so much. So.
All right. It depends on what sort of steak you have though, because they all vary. Because you got your rump steak and that's quite chewy, but if you get your sirloin steak, that's really quite like succulent, and it's quite an easy one to eat. It's quite a tender one.
It was either ribeye or a strip, I think. I mean, it's one of those chewy.
Well, ribeyes. You've got to be careful with ribeyes because they've got a high fat content ribeye, and so you've got to cook it. If you don't render the fat down, they're horrible. You just end up chewing raw fat if you don't cook those properly. You've got to make sure you can still have them medium rare, but you've got to make sure that you do them. I think you have to do them over a slower heat so that the fat renders. Because the secret of those is the fat melting on the inside of it, and then you're in steak heaven if you have one of those cooked properly.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say actually fillets are usually pretty good, but I would say don't order from Gordon Ramsay's restaurant.
Oh, I've never been to his.
I would say the food is very good. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But good God, it is pricey. I'll tell you that much. It's going to burn a hole in your wallet too. So I'll tell you that much. So fair warning whenever you go to London, or I guess wherever he has it in around the UK too. I don't know how many restaurants he has in around the UK.
It's got a few. It's got at least 2 in London that I know about, none of which I've been to. But he had his Hell's Kitchen on for a while because he used to use that to do his like chef talent competition show that he did. That was where he had a lot of like English celebrities, and they ended up cooking in the kitchen under his. Excuse me, sorry about that. It's tutelage, so to speak.
This whole thing where he starts cussing like, "What the fuck are you doing?" That sort of thing too, yeah. Oh, man. I think he's at least done that. I don't know about his recent show he came out with too. I'll have to check that out. It's like Kitchen Nightmares or something like that.
Oh well, he did, yeah, because he did the English version of it. It really. Well, yeah, except he was visiting the English restaurants, and then he took it across to. And then he took
the USA version now.
The US,
the UK version now. We got a USA version, yeah.
Yeah, I remember watching the US version because I think when he first started doing it in the US, I don't think nobody was quite used to the way he was. Because at least in the UK, people had heard of him in the UK. They knew what it was like, so knew what you were getting. If he came to visit your kitchen because it was failing in some way, they knew what they were going to get. When he did the same thing in America, they didn't know what they were going to get, and you could tell that some of the reactions of people and that so, is this guy for real or what? And so
It's like, oh shit,
so,
man,
yeah,
that whole thing, yeah.
so it's just so it's a lot more interesting watching the ones he did in America because they were like they were like lambs to the slaughter really when he was doing it because they're just completely unprepared for it.
Yeah, I can imagine too. Yeah, that's probably the funny part about it too. Even though it's tense with his yelling and that sort of thing. All right. For the next question here, I guess. First off, do you drink at all?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is your favorite?
In moderation.
Oh yeah. Well, we hope it's moderation, but regardless, alcoholic and non-alcoholic. Which ones would you say is your favorite drinks?
Well, I'm a big fan of cocktails when the occasion's right. My favourite one of those is a Perfect Manhattan. And then if I just go for a normal drink, I suppose I like bourbon whiskey because that's the basis of a Manhattan as well. But gin and tonic as a normal drink. But my favourite ones when I go out to a cocktail bar, Perfect Manhattan.
And so you get along well with my dad. He really loves gin and tonics too. So that's pretty awesome. If I get some more friends as we keep going along too, that's at least a good thing. I do have to ask, do you blast cold gin by Kiss every now and again whenever you do gin and tonics?
Yeah, I'm trying to think what gin I like because I don't know whether they have the same. You must have pretty much the same sort of things. The one I like the best is one called Bombay Sapphire. It comes in a blue bottle.
Yeah, he likes those too. Well, there actually is a song by Kiss. It's called Cold Gin, and it's in reference to gin and tonics. So I don't know if you ever hear that song?
Oh, right. No. And I was drinking gin and tonic when I went, but I don't think I was paying much attention to what the branding was because I went to Vegas a few years ago, and I was drinking gin and tonic there for the main part. But Vegas is where I discovered Philly steak sandwiches. I know they do them over here, but I know they do them in the UK. But when I had one in the US, I never had anything like it. So if I want the Philly cheesesteak sandwiches good again, I'm going to have to come to the US again.
Well, it's a legit one, that's for sure too. But you have to actually do it in the city of Philadelphia to have the real one, to say the least too. So
yeah. Oh, steak and eggs as well.
Actually, in the city I'm from, Pittsburgh, we actually do ours. We mix fries, coleslaw, and we also at times put egg on our sandwiches too. It's a mixed bag at times, but damn, it is good. I'll tell you that much. So you know what you're walking into. All right. And for the last of fun questions, what's currently your favorite song?
Oh, right. It's funny with favourite songs because they can change on a daily basis. They can sometimes change on an hourly basis. What my favourite song is. The one I'm listening to at the moment, which I've given a lot of spins to, is an indie musician, and I think I'm not actually sure where he's from because he does a lot of his gigs in London. I think he actually lives in Scotland, but it's somebody called Mohan Evans, and you should be able to find him on Spotify because he's only the one person, and he's got a song called Riverwalk. And that is such a chilled out song. So if I want something, if I'm like doing something and I thought, right, I want a real feel good vibe to go with that, that's the song that I'll go to put on. And it's great. And I'm not sure how to define it as a musical style. It's sort of like quite trip hoppy almost, but jazzy as well. And he's just got one of the nicest singing voices I've ever heard. So that's my favourite song at the moment.
I see, yeah. Yeah, I can relate to that, having like changing like songs every now and again. Whenever you hear something that's a very good, it's like, damn, that sort of thing. And then, they got you hooked and you're just on repeat whenever you want to listen to it too. So I can relate. I'm guilty. So that's pretty cool. All right. So, Neil, we're reaching the end of my podcast right here. We've almost talked for a good hour and 30 minutes, I guess. So did you have any questions for me or anything you want to say before we jump into the final question?
I can't think of anything. I mean, is this the podcasting, or is this like a sideline like Christina? Although with Christina, it's becoming more her full-time thing now. But are you put any music out yourself as well?
I've actually teamed up with Storm Kingdom, and this is actually the first time I did metal lyrics, actually. So, of course, it's with the growl and everything, too. And he did the music, and then I'm just doing the vocals, pretty much. And that's the first time I've really ever did something, really. I've never really done my own music or any sort of collaboration. So I feel like for next year, that would be something as a New Year's resolution to at least collaborate a little bit more, too. So that would be nice. I mean, if I want to try throwing drums, maybe a little bass. I'm not too sure about the bass because I only know like standard E tuning, so that's about the extent of my knowledge. So, but I think as a New Year's resolution, it would be do more collaborations within band together too. So, shout out to everybody there. I'll make a message of it at some point. So,
that's one thing that I'd quite like to do. It's I was trying to read up on it because I was always wondering how they managed to do the collaborations, and it was one of the people from. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Nerock, and they got the A and the E joined together. And I was asking them.
Oh, yeah, Nerock, yeah.
Yeah, and they did some collaborations, and I was saying, how do you get your stuff over there, and vice versa, and then get it back? Anyway, they said it was something to do with stems. So at the moment, I'm learning about stems, so I can send stuff over to people and vice versa.
I just remember emailing like MP3s through email. So that could be another way to do it too, but I don't know if it compresses the file or something. Not too sure.
Yeah, it does to a certain extent, doesn't it? Because it makes it smaller so that you can send it.
Something like that, yeah.
Because they're supposed to be doing a collaboration with Christina. So I sent her the MP3 of the song that I wanted her to sing. And then another artist, Shannon Darcy. And she's another one. Suppose if I really wanted to, Shannon Darcy only lives about a 2-hour drive from me. So suppose if I really wanted to, I could just go around the house. I just can't be bothered. The 2-hour drive is quite a long one for me, especially with that. I could do it on Route 66. I could probably drive for 6 or 7 hours along there, taking in all the scenery. But I don't think the Midlands to like just on the outskirts of London would be such an enjoyable drive. So I'm still trying to work out. City. But so I'm still trying to work out the STEM aspect of it. And the other thing is that they're both really busy, so I have to wait till they're available to do some vocals for me. And then they might be available at the same time, or there might be one. So I've got this song fully recorded. And it needs tidying up a little bit, mastering and things like that. But I got the song fully recorded, just waiting for their vocals. So
I'll see what happens, bud.
Yeah, it might happen this year. But given that we're almost in November now, I think this one's going to be a 2024 project.
Probably, we'll have to see what happens. But
and with Shannon, it might be a case of saying, well, let me know a weekend that you're free. And then we'll go to that studio that you use, and then, we'll get the engineer to do it as well, because the engineer will probably be able to master it a lot better than I can.
All right, that sounds good. And best of luck going forward there, mate. Did you have any more, or is it okay we jump into the final question?
Oh, go on, I'll do the final question then.
All right, I'll pick up some more questions after the interview's done. Which we'll get around to part 2 at some point, but we'll see what happens. All right, but for the final question here, you probably already touched on maybe some of it too, but just to kind of reiterate, what sort of message of hope could you give to musicians and people out there as we try to move forward in a post-COVID world?
A message of hope. Well, from pandemics point of view, anyone young, I'd say this is the first pandemic that I've lived through, and I'm almost 60, so I wouldn't worry too much about another pandemic. And Yeah, I suppose the other message of hope I give to people is with the social media. Let's say that if you go on chat places like Twitter or Facebook, let's say take a step back and have a proper look round, because the real world isn't anything like Twitter. So I find Twitter quite toxic. And you go on it, and I'll put something on Twitter, and if it's something that, mind you, having said that, sometimes I'll deliberately put controversial things on Twitter so that people will come flying at me. But people will put a genuine opinion, and they'll just get attacked. And I'm thinking, but that's not what real life is. If you went out for a meal and you said something like that to someone, you wouldn't get attacked like that. So I think a message of hope is that the real world isn't anything like social media. So if people think social media is the real world, no, that's wrong. The real world's actually probably a much more pleasurable place than a lot of the social media. And yeah, as for the message of hope is, the world's not as bad as it seems, and there's still a lot of enjoyment to be had from it. And and then from a musician point of view, rather than just a generalistic point of view, I think you can get just as much pleasure if 100 people listen to music as 1,000 people listen to music. And I think I'd say hold on to the fact that if anyone's listening at all, it's a really good thing, a really good positive thing, and to hang on to that. I mean, you're never going to have as many, unless you're really lucky. Say you're never going to have as many listeners as, say, I was trying to think of a band where they were all still alive, actually, from yesteryear. But just you're never going to have as many people listening to you as, say, as you are the Eagles or something like that. They're always going to have more listeners than you do several times over, unless you hit a really lucky break. But I think if someone somewhere listens to your music, it's a good thing, and hang on to that. Someone's appreciating you somewhere, and there's always people who will in the future.
Spoken like a true prodigy. Yeah, it gets really tough out there, but I'd say there's a good number of people who know the world's not as bad as it seems, but just people who like making it sound like it is, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So.
No, I'd say a lot of social media makes the world sounds worse than it is.
Yeah.
I look at threads on there sometimes and I think, God, if that's what life is really like, I'm not sure.
Yeah. I try to avoid it, but sometimes I just want to see like what people are talking about and be like, this is way out of my range, that sort of thing too. So I don't know, but let's hope everyone stays away from it too. And best luck on your journey at Nelioz.
Oh, yeah.
So, all right. So Neil, we reached the end of my podcast right here. I guess, do you have any questions for me or any final words you want to say before we close?
Yeah, no, it's been really nice. Been really nice talking to you. And you've asked me some nice, interesting questions, and give me some nice, interesting answers, and also put your own, input in rather than rather than letting me do all the talking, which is probably never a good idea anyway.
I would say it probably does make for an interesting conversation, to be honest, too. So.
Yeah. No, but it's been a nice interview. This nice pleasant interview. I was quite surprised to find out that when did we start? Yeah, I was quite surprised to find that the time's gone quite so fast.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost been 2 hours at this point, too, so that's all good. All right. And I guess how else can people reach you if they want to reach out and talk with you or maybe collab at some point?
I'm on a few things. So, I think, my Spotify's got links to my Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And yeah, I mean, the only people I've conversed with at the moment really is the people in the band together. Have chats with them and like compliment each other's stuff and things. But if anyone's just generally looking and they want to drop me a line, my Spotify's got links to all my other social media, so that's probably the best place to go.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah. Everyone, my guest today was Nelioz Hubbard, aka I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but he doesn't really remind so Nelioz. So go hit him up on Spotify, check him out on the socials. This guy's doing wonders out in the world, and he's always up for a collab. So let's make Shannon Darcy and Net Rock happen at some point too. So let's make it happen. Okay. Neil, you stay safe.
And you as well.
And stay tuned, y'all.
Cheers.